Hey there. Mercury Retrograde started today. You might know that. It's a big moment for anyone who follows astrology. The Mercury Retrogrades are pretty popular. A lot of people seem to pay attention to them and work with them. So I wanted to tune in a little bit on this Saturday, say hello to everyone, and check in with Mercury Retrograde energy. It's been a big week. I don't know how everybody's doing. We're a couple days past a full moon in Leo, and it was a powerful full moon. It was in strong aspect with the Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Aquarius. A full moon is always an opposition between the sun and the moon. So the Leo moon was also reflecting this big light and benevolent, magnifying energy of Jupiter, whatever that means in your chart. But it was a big full moon, and Leo and Aquarius are part of the fixed cross. So that means that the full moon was also square with Mars and Uranus in Taurus. And that's a big energy. That's a collective energy. Uranus is one of the outer planets, and Uranus in Taurus, you've probably heard astrologers talking about. It's an influence that's going to last for about 7 or 8 years. We're about 2 years in, and this is big change, big revolution, a lot of upheaval and also innovation in areas that are Taurus ruled. Some of the Taurus ruled areas have to do with economies. So a lot of changes in money and how people are working with money, food and agriculture, wealth, values, and bodies, embodiment. So Uranus in Taurus is a really interesting influence to tune in with. And for me, I was feeling, 2 years already, started in 2017, 2018. For me, I've been feeling this full moon energy as like a validation of a lot of the work I've been doing for the last while. I mean, definitely the last 2 years, if I click into the Uranus and Taurus influence. And that work of that I'm feeling as like a need to repattern, a wanting, like a recognizing of where patterns are that are keeping me held back, and then a desire to repattern has been a very conscious effort for me over the last couple of years. And it takes a lot of work. I'm sure a lot of folks out there are doing this too, where you're finding parts of your life and you're going, gotta upgrade this. I have to, lift my consciousness and do things in a different way. But in order to do that, you really have to work with yourself, because habits are hard to change. So anybody else feeling that? I've really been feeling that these last couple days with the full moon. And I've been feeling like a validation kind of. And it doesn't feel like the work is over, but it feels like I'm on the right path. And I've been getting some good support for that. So I hope that you guys are feeling supported in your efforts as well. This is a really pivotal time on our planet. People are changing so much right now, and the world is changing so much, and all of us are in it. We're just in it. We're in this change. So, And someone's commenting that they have had some revelations about tendencies and how they relate to themselves and others. And I think that this is for sure a theme with Aquarius. And we're in Aquarius season. The Leo full moon was reflecting the light of Aquarius, that Jupiter in Aquarius. Someone's commenting about the education system needs to crumble. So Aquarian energy is a rebellious energy, and it's an innovating energy, and it's an energy that comes in when we wake up to how something has been built. So when we recognize that everything that's happening is arising from the conditions that made it happen, and we go, oh, what are the conditions, right? It's not so much the thing that's happening that's the focal point, it's where is it coming from. So a lot of people talking about this in a lot of different ways. Like, how do we change the symptoms of something? We have to look at the deeper systemic, holistic picture. And so today, Mercury has stationed retrograde in Aquarius. And Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year. It's an apparent phenomena. That means it's a visual phenomena. It's not an actual shift in the planetary rotation around the sun. But Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. The Earth, of course, is the third in line. And our orbital differences create that visual phenomena, as if you were in a car next to a train and someone's moving faster and it appears that one is moving backwards. So that's what Mercury retrograde is. And of course, astrology is a symbolic language, and astrologers use the symbolism of heavenly light, celestial light, and terrestrial light, the light of the earth, the light of the season, the light of the moon, to track time and to think about the symbolism of these periods of time when things happen. So Mercury retrograde is a symbol. We can see Mercury with the naked eye, and it looks in the sky as if it has just stopped in one place and slowed down. And now it's going to appear to start moving backwards. And when Mercury is retrograde, what we have is a symbol of the innermost planet to the sun. And so if we think about the sun as the light of consciousness, and that innermost planet is the first translator of the light of consciousness, and Mercury symbolism often speaks to translation, communication. How do we interpret the information that is coming in from the outer environment and that we're feeling in ourselves? And then how do we articulate it out into the world? In my studies of meditation, I was introduced to a term that's a Sanskrit word, buddhi, and it refers to the part of our minds or the part of our beings that communicate between like our biggest consciousness and then our consciousness, like our human consciousness. So our biggest selves and then our minds, our mental selves. And in medical astrology, Mercury has a correspondence with the synapse, with the place where neurons connect, where information travels from one nerve to another. And if you are a somatic therapist or practitioner of any kind, or if you've worked with meditation or other approaches to repatterning, you might be familiar with the synapse as a place to linger or try and linger and pause, because information travels fast and thoughts travel fast. And when we have communication patterns or translation patterns, this is the symbol of Mercury, how we make sense of things, those patterns get set into place when we're quite young. They're repeated throughout our lives, and they form deep grooves in our consciousness. So when Mercury is retrograde, what we have is an image of this kind of part of our beings that's very close to our central intelligence, very close to what we could call consciousness, which is before an ego, right? It's beyond the self. But then we have a figure that's kind of circling around that. This is Mercury, translating the light of consciousness. And with Mercury as a symbol of communication, when it goes retrograde, we have a reflective kind of communication. We have a mental awareness or a kind of informational awareness that's traveling backwards. We can think about moving our minds towards themselves, right? And this is also meditation practice, like to turn the mind in towards its own pattern and watch what's happening in the thoughts. And this is an excellent use of Mercury retrograde. It's a really great time to be reflective. It's a really good time to slow down. And if you have mistakes happen, it's probably a really good time to make sure that whatever has caused the mistake isn't settled upon deeper mistakes or faulty foundations. So if something is happening, as it often does or seems to in Mercury retrograde, where it's like, like that email never got sent or the wrong one got sent or something like that, that might be a cue to look at well, what actually are the conditions that created this mistake to happen? Like, was I moving too fast? I often move too fast. Sometimes I don't think about what I'm doing. And maybe that's a place where I can bring more consciousness or more awareness. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. Did I, not have the right information? Oh, I need better information. I need to do some research. Mercury retrograde, astrologers like to say you just add the RE prefix. So you can remain with things. You can use it as a time to remember things, to reflect on things, to revise things. This is a really good time if you're working on projects to turn around and look at them and go, are there any revisions that need to be made? This is an excellent time to do the RE work in Mercury retrograde. Now in Aquarius, we have a symbol of humanity. Aquarius as the 11th sign speaks to the community around us or the collective. And I'm thinking about a panel discussion I watched a recording of yesterday, the Embodied social leadership panel discussion. Someone was talking about the difference. Reverend Kyoto Williams was talking about the difference between community and collective, and I appreciated their framing of it, that community is a group of people that come together around a shared intent. So with Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, we have a time to reflect on community. How are we coming together with people and also with humanness? The 11th sign, we have humanity. We have the human family. And it's quite an interesting time to be a human, right? Like, we're in a moment when humanity has been wildly connected in its consciousness through COVID, through what's happening with COVID. The entire globe is going through some kind of experience that's creating the necessity to bring attention to our interconnections. And the interconnection exists in the air that we breathe. As one place of interconnection, Aquarius is an air sign. And all of the air signs speak to the shared human experience and how do we share with each other? How do we get along with each other? How do we speak to each other? People come from all different places. They speak all different languages. So again, this kind of figure of Mercury as a communicator and as a translator is an important figure. And with Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, we can really think about this. Like, how are we taking in the information from the world these days? How are we interpreting it through the lens of our own experiences? Are we aware that we're interpreting through the lens of our own experience? And how can we work to create more consciousness within that experience? And sometimes the consciousness is just that it's an experience, right? Like just, oh, I'm a person on the planet having this experience. And I don't know about you, but as a person in a body, my experiences all have to do with me. I imagine it's the same for you, right? Like we're each living in our own bodies and in our own lives, and we're the center of our own shows. And we share this world with billions of other people. We've come in for little splashes in the big ocean of humanity. Short little lives, we'll do what we do and then we'll move on, and the flow of human evolution will keep going. So what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be a human on Earth at this time when we are really feeling the power of our interconnection, of the shared air that we breathe, of our responsibility towards one another? And I think that COVID, is a great kind of lens for this of, you might not know a person, you might not really have any cause to ever interact with them, but just your breath and their breath, like there's a shared responsibility there. There's a shared relationship. And so how are we going to interrelate, in this space? Could be a good question for Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury's retrograde in Aquarius. So this is a time I think that it's really interesting to think about big picture. Aquarius is a big picture, and Jupiter's presence in Aquarius right now adds to that need to expand consciousness, to zoom out to see how are groups of people organizing and what is bringing us together. What are we organizing around? Aquarius is representative of a what's called fixed air. And I think of this as the thought structures that settle. So you can have a million thoughts in a day, but what are the thoughts that actually have a form to them, that you're really going to start to gather around and build around and manifest around? Aquarius, I think, refers to these kinds of thoughts, the strength of thought to manifest. So we all have the strength of that kind of thought, of course. We can each manifest for ourselves to some extent. But when people come together around a shared idea, then the strength of thought gets boosted. And when people use their voices and when they uplift their own intelligence by learning from one another, and when they uplift everyone's intelligence by learning from one another, then we can really manifest something. We can really do something. And Aquarius, I think, is a really interesting sign in this way because it speaks to the power of the group, the power of the collective. Reading the news today, there's news about small individual investors, people without a lot of money, coming together to topple these hedge funds, whatever. I don't know, this isn't my field, but people who have a lot of money, right, who are trying to control the markets. And this group of small investors has come together and completely toppled something with whatever's happening with that GameStop stocks. And so this kind of image of a group of people coming together to revolt against a dominant power, a structural power, an economic power, and they're going to shift something. They're going to say, oh, we can do something that's different, and the people take the power. This is a great theme for what we're moving into with Aquarius. In the last IG Live I did, I think I talked a lot about Jupiter and Saturn's entry into Aquarius, the last couple of them. So this theme around rebellion and revolt and revolution it's a big theme. It's going to continue to be a big theme over who knows how long. And at some point, some kind of thought form will settle and people will start to build on that and they'll manifest on that. And for the time being, this year, 2021, is a year of huge change and transformation. And so there's a lot of opportunity right now to see what can happen when we organize ourselves around the strength of a thought. In our bodies, Aquarius rules the nervous system, the circulation, and the fascia. So we can think about connective structures that distribute energy throughout the whole body. Again, to kind of circle back to what I was talking about when I started, to do repatterning work, and I do this a lot as a somatic educator and practitioner, we have to come really deeply into a pattern in our bodies. We have to explore what it is. A lot of pattern has been set up around injury, all kinds of injury, mental, emotional, psychic injuries, as well as physical injuries. And when we find a pattern in the body that's not working so efficiently, we've got to go into the pattern. We have to really understand what the pattern is so that we can start to unwind from it. And I think that this image of Mercury and Aquarius and the kind of intelligence function, the translation function, starting to move backwards in a way that helps us to explore the deep patterning, the connections of things. We can do this in ourselves, in our own lives, and then we can do this in the world right now, and it's happening in the world, that groups of people are coming together and they're going, we're going to rethink how we organize, or we see that there's a crack in that system, so now we're all going to get the sledgehammers out and we're going to go break it down. This is happening all across the board. Everybody is doing their own version of it. I was also reading about the farmers' strike in India this morning, and farmers gathering around the I believe it was Gandhi's birthday. I'm not sure. I think that's what I read. To stage like a nonviolent protest and to demand better treatment, and resources. So this is the kind of movement that we can move towards right now. My particular interest, so anybody else out there who's kind of on this tip, if you are involved with any kind of organizing efforts, with any like unions, labor groups, if you're involved with any kind of collective work, this is an amazing time. Like, it's an amazing time to work within your organizations. It's an amazing time to call out what you see as problematic and invite more conversation in. It's a really amazing time to work to get support and to like get people to be working together. And for people to be working together right now, people need to be talking to each other and they need to be sharing ideas, not insisting on like any one kind of, like one leader's idea or something like that. The symbol of Aquarius is the group, right? And so we're looking right now for collective intelligence and collective leadership. And we're also trying to participate with that. So you can also think about this Mercury retrograde in terms of what you're doing, personally in your life. Where is Aquarius in your chart? There are only 12 signs in the zodiac. Everybody's chart has 12 houses. You will have Aquarius somewhere in your chart. And the symbol for Aquarius is like two little lightning bolts on top of each other. And so if you can get a free chart at astro.com. You can also go to my website on the horoscope section and get a free chart there. If you find where Aquarius is in your chart, someone's saying it's in their 11th house, then what you want to do is then get on Google and you just Google that, like Aquarius in the 11th house. What does that mean? Get the themes for that house. And then in whatever part of your life or your chart, same, that Aquarius is working in, that's a place where you can think about repatterning, trying to understand like how something is working, hacking it. Like, you don't want to do that anymore, hack it, figure out how you're going to repattern, how you're going to disrupt, how you're going to interrupt. I also want to say that support for what is working and for what you are enjoying and that you do want to see manifest and succeed and thrive, like that's also a really good hack. So like in the part of your life that Aquarius rules and you're like, I want to change something, if you see what you're not into, go for what you are into, right? Like, so Aquarius is a future energy. It's also the opposite of Leo. We're coming out of this Leo full moon, and Leo is an energy that is about the heart and joy. Aquarius in its high manifestation is like elevated humanity. Humanity, and it's like, human beings are capable of a lot of joy. And when we're in spaces where we feel safe and seen by one another and there's like enough, we have a great time. So if we can think about like, how do we move towards a big vision, a joyful vision? Think about that in your life. Like, what do you want to move towards? What do you want to open towards? What does your heart say yes to? And particularly, how can you connect with other people around that yes? And if that means also like not connecting in certain ways or disrupting certain kinds of attachments, that's great, hack it, like find the way to get to where you want to go. Hopefully that makes sense. I posted something the other day for the Leo full moon that was a video of the heart. And I've been working with this meditation a lot for a while and to profound effect for myself. And it's really helping me with repatterning. So I'm a person person that has a hard time sometimes keeping my heart open. I don't know if anybody else out there ever feels this way. I can get shut down pretty easily. I can get emotionally overwhelmed and scared. And I'm an introvert. So I've been working with this meditation to notice how my heart starts to close or starts to protect itself or something like that. And my entire meditation is just trying to stay in my heart and keep softening it. Keep paying attention to it. And when I notice that it's starting to close, like taking breaths, being with myself, trying to like love my heart. And I have to say that in my efforts to repattern, this is helping me a lot. And in terms of like noticing how deep patterns work, this kind of practice where if you notice that you're starting to do something that has like a dysfunctional or painful or like any kind of effect where you're feeling like, oh, this is shutting me down, or this is a way that I am sometimes and it's hard, or like I know when I go into this place that then I get into a fight or something like that. If you have any kind of thing like that going on in your life on any level, with money, with food, with your work, with your relationships, wherever you find that you're like, you feel like you get constricted, or you feel like your heart shuts down, or you feel like you get shut off from love. I think that this practice of just connecting in with the heart and then listening to it and like allowing it to take the lead, for me feels really effective as a repatterning practice. It's really not formulaic. It's not like a protocol. Who knows what your heart is going to say to you, if you really tune in and go like, wow, how can I soften? Like if I'm going to move forward in this area of my life, whatever it is, how I'm dealing with money, but I'm feeling so scared all the time, like what needs to happen in terms of my inner awareness and the way that I'm holding myself, just so I can keep a little bit of softness around my heart. That's the only question is like, how do I stay connected in here? How do I keep coming back into my heart? And Leo and Aquarius work together. All of the signs in opposition work together. And Aquarius, again, is a connecting force. It's a distributing force. It distributes the information of the heart. So in medical astrology, Leo rules the heart and Aquarius rules the veins. The heart and the veins are a closed system. They work together. They're not separate. And the heart is constantly pumping and then sucking, right? And moving blood through the veins. And the veins are bringing life force energy into your body. And they're also clearing your body. They're taking out what is not life force energy anymore. So Aquarius can do this as an energy. It can circulate vitality. It can circulate love, heart energy. And to work to repattern with Aquarius, we're working to repattern the distributing networks, or like the way that we've kind of habituated and gotten into some kind of groove with how we move our life force energy. I hope that makes sense. So to work with this Mercury retrograde, think about repatterning. In the area of your chart that Aquarius lives in, how can you feel more vital, right? Like more connected with your heart, with your breath. The heart and the breath work together. You are breathing in relationship with the world around you. Your inhales are someone else's exhales and vice versa. You're breathing with the plant and the mineral world. You're breathing with all of the animal kin. You're breathing with time. You're breathing with the ocean. You're breathing with the sky. Wherever that is in your chart, like how can you get more connected, more expansive? And then think about like, are there ways of being in this part of your life, this part of your chart, that you want to hack? Are there structures that have been built up that you no longer want to participate with? What are the ways that you're working to rebel or to liberate or to break out of something? So I see some people chatting in like what house Aquarius is in, and I'm just going to say, like, go get on the internet and research it, because there's a lot of information out there. And astrology is a technology. It is an incredible tool that can help us elevate our consciousness. And it's not any one person's property. So astrologers are storytellers and interpreters. We're all taking our own unique, slants on astronomical data, interpreting it. So get to know astrology, check it out. There's so much guidance, I think, in it. The more I work with astrology, the more I feel like my life flows, and I trust it. I took some notes. I want to make sure I tell you what I wanted to tell you. Any good websites that I recommend or avoid? Well, Chani Nicholas is like, I don't know. She writes for Oprah Mag. She's like the Oprah of astrology. She's excellent, and her website has a really great, like, interactive kind of situation on it. You can get a lot of information on your chart if you go to her website. Astro.com is a great website. It's free to use. You can create your own charts there. I think you get free storage for up to 100 charts, so you can look at all of your friends' charts. They have also like free interpretive tools, a ton of great articles. And I really like Cafe Astrology too, for just kind of like simple cookbook explanations. And then in terms of contemporary astrologers that might not like have huge websites like myself, I've been really enjoying reading Diana Rose astrology, and Alice Sparkly Cat, Giselle Castagno. I think you can find a lot of folks on Instagram these days. So yeah, research it. Learn about astrology to, to assist you with timing, especially, and like thinking about the context of particular moments. One of my astrology mentors says that any time is good if you know what the time is good for. And that is astrology. Is like, what is the time good for? Any time is a good time if you know what it's good for. So some times are good for, feeling emotional and staying in your pajamas and eating ice cream. Sometimes are good for putting on your power suit and going to like drop off applications everywhere. You want to make sure that you use the timing to do the one that it's going to be good for, right? And on the day that you should be at home eating the ice cream, stay home. Don't go out and try and get your interviews that day. That's why astrology is so cool. Okay, so I have this note too about the Leo Aquarius balance, and how with Leo symbolism, we have the symbolism of the individual expression, and like the individual being a thing, like the unique expression, the performer, the star, something like that. And with Aquarius, we have the group, the audience, the community, right? And so one needs the other. A star can't exist without their audience. The audience creates the performer, right? Like they need one another in order to exist. So Aquarius as an energy is an interesting energy because it brings our awareness into the group dynamic, and it also illuminates the group dynamic. And for many people, this can cause a feeling of intense self-awareness of like, who am I within this group? So I might feel like I'm an outcast. I might feel an intense need to fit in. I might feel like I want to lead the group. I might feel like I want to escape the group or something like that. But the relationship of the individual with a group is an important relationship to think about. And with this Mercury retrograde, again, considering the themes of the house that Mercury rules in your chart, also think about what is your relationship with groups in that area of your life? What has been modeled to you from the groups that you've been a part of? And this always includes the family as the first group, friend groups, but also like larger social groups. So if you're like into punk rock, you know, like what are the other punks into? That's going to influence how you're thinking about this area of your life. The ways that you interact with groups and that currently you feel yourself drawn towards any kind of group momentum or movement could be really interesting to think about in this part of your life as well. This is, I think, a really important time, and I said this before, but to examine like what is the individual as a unit, and being in the United States, you know, in 2021, it's like, well, we've got a lot of examples of the individual as a unit that's really glorified and really elevated. But what Aquarius teaches is that the individual as a unit is a figment. The individual doesn't exist without the community that creates the individual. And part of what I think the Leo Aquarius balance or dynamic can teach us is that when we pursue our individual gain at the expense of others, then we end up suffering. Like then it's just leading to battle, hardship, struggle, competitiveness, and kind of bad dynamics with groups. If we pursue the growth of the individual and the individual happiness with the awareness that the individual is part of the group, then we get something that's really different. So in community spaces where individuals are seen and supported to be really themselves, you know, where as much as possible, people are trying to go like, who are you? You know, express who you are, whether that's around your gender or your style or how you want to dance or what it is that you're interested in and want to talk about. There's like a gift in who you are for the community. The more that we can have experiences like that, right, where individuals are helped and also held accountable to our own impact and influence and desires, the more vibrant we're going to have, the more vibrant our communities will be. And we'll then have groups of people who are elevated individuals, right? And the elevated individual can be in connection because there's not a trying to compete or prove something or be somebody else, you know, mimic someone else, mirror someone else. And this is a lot of the intelligence of Aquarius, is to go like, that's the fucking group thing. Like you think that trend is cool now, but like that's just because it's someone's pumping a lot of money into promoting it or something like that. Like, how do we see the ways that we get caught in other people's ideas about like who we should be, right? One of the things that I'm going to try and do with Mercury retrograde in Aquarius is be more intentional around my use of we. And I was just noticing that because, I don't know, you know, if you connect with what I'm saying. So this is the question I'm asking for myself. How can I live in the world in such a way where I'm actively putting in an effort all the time to really be who I am, to not apologize for it, but to also be accountable to who I am, to know that I'm a person that's going to make mistakes, that's going to fuck up, that is messy sometimes. And I'm always going to be in a state of growing. So how can I be a human being, happy in myself, full in my heart, and then how can I support the people around me as much as possible to be human beings, to fail, to be messy, to be their glorious, brilliant selves, for me to celebrate them, to not get freaked out or invalidated or competitive when they're being awesome, right? But to like see them and be their biggest cheerleader. Like, to me, that feels really interesting for this Mercury in Aquarius. Like, how am I participating as a human being in the human project? The human project is huge. It's a huge tapestry. I'm one thread. So what's my experience here? How am I learning from what's happening out there? How do I want to plug myself into it? And then what's holding me back? So I want to look at the part of my chart where Aquarius lives and go like, where have I been stuck in those places? And that's where I want to repattern. And I want to get into my heart. And I want to go like, what would it take for me to feel open and soft in my heart and loving right now? And it's not about controlling the external circumstances. It might be about advocating for something or asking for something, but it's really going to be about like, how do I need to care for myself in this moment so that I can be in my heart, so that I can stay connected to this truth? I think that was it. I had a journaling moment before I got on here and wrote a bunch of notes, but I think that's it. All the Mercury retrogrades this year are in the air signs, and that's something to think about, is that in 2021 we're working with like really a kind of, again, repatterning our E prefix with Mercury project in our intelligence. Aquarius, all the air signs have to do with intelligence, with some level of the way that we use our minds, how we interpret the information that comes in through all of our senses, and what we do with that information and how we work with it in the world. So Aquarius brings us into kind of the big picture of information, our nervous systems, our circulation, the way that we are in relationship in a total, in a whole. In June, we'll have Mercury retrograde in Gemini, and that corresponds with an eclipse in Gemini and Saturn's second square to Uranus. And that is going to be, I think, a pretty important Mercury retrograde that will really help us rework our communications quite a lot. Gemini is also a sign that rules currencies. And so for people who are interested in what's happening with the markets right now, it feels like this is going to be a big theme this year of, people trying to hack systems. So, I don't know. It's kind of, if you're a money-minded person, you want to hack money, aim for that Mercury retrograde in June with your projects, and what you're thinking about, and try and figure something out for then. And then Mercury will be retrograde also in September and October in Libra. And Libra is representative of the one-on-one relationship, the dyad, and is a symbol of justice, right, and equality. And so this is an amazing year to really be thinking about, again, these deeper patterns and expectations around relationship within the human project. What COVID is doing, I think is really amplifying the inequities in the world. And the more information that comes out about, who's getting most affected where, who's getting access to the vaccine, what, the economic situation that's being exposed because of COVID, the environmental factors, etc., the push for equity is going to get stronger and stronger. So September, October, for people who are organizing, think about this whole year as a time to knock that shit down, figure out what it is that you're wanting to change or to disrupt. And you can work with these retrogrades. You can work to revise, to rewrite, make new rules, things like that. Hack student loans, Bitcoin. I think people are definitely going to be investing in virtual currencies. My thought, though, is Bitcoin isn't actually that different to me and its energy from a dollar bill, in the sense that, yes, it's decentralized, but we're not really dealing with the idea of currency in terms of vitality and life energy is more interesting to me. And I think that Bitcoin has been created from the conditions of capitalism. It's still about it's not about, I don't know. I mean, maybe it could be used as a disruptive currency, but unless there's the intentionality from the people around decentralizing wealth and mutual aid and sharing and recalibrating access, etc., it's just going to be the same shit. So you could invest in virtual currencies and probably that will go somewhere, I don't know, but maybe a better place to invest is in relationship. A better place to invest is in like helping each other out, being a good human being, and like figuring out how to share resources and how to build collective wealth that's not about money. And especially with these squares to Uranus and Taurus, things are going to get really shaken up. Like, what's happening with climate is intense and it's just going to get more intense. We're like just starting it in terms of climate chaos, and our food systems really need to change, in terms of like, how can we move towards the future? Maybe Bitcoin, but more like, can you get together with your neighbors and start a garden and like figure out how to take care of each other's kids and stuff? Like meet the basic needs in new ways and innovate around it. And like where we can really disrupt is in the channels of relationship. Again, Aquarius, the channels of relationship have been really co-opted and manipulated by capitalism. And people have organized themselves in competition with one another and towards exploitation of one another. That's fucked up. It won't take us into the future. It'll just take us towards like toxicity and gross. Like we've been doing this for a long time. Like we don't need to keep doing it. This is boring. And so I think this is like the Aquarian energy of like, can we shift? Can we innovate? Can we do something different with our energy? I'm super interested in working with money and working with any kind of currency. And so I think this is a time to be thinking creatively about that. And I don't want to like throw shade on that or anything. So, for folks who are into math and like want to think about disruption of markets and things like that, like this is an amazing time, I think, to, someone said outside and beyond capitalism. Exactly. Like move bigger, think broader. Like what is money a symbol of? It's a currency. It's, if we think about money as like, it's a life force, it's a resource, we got to circulate it more. And so outside of money, how can we just circulate energy? How can we circulate vitality? That's kind of the question that's most interesting to me. And I think these squares to Uranus and Taurus, like throughout 2021, are going to push that as an issue. And if folks like, are engaging with, just different ways of sharing, like this is taking us into the future. I mean, the sharing economy is like booming, right? And we just have to figure out, how do we engage with these technologies of exchange, again, the air element? How do we engage with them in ways that are actually towards their best benefit? How do we move into the future with them? The best benefit will be the benefit that serves the greatest good, not that makes like one or a couple guys rich. The best benefit is going to be the thing that like allows all of us to prosper and to take care of each other and the planet, not get a mansion, right? So Uranus and Taurus, redefining values. Blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of blah, blah, blah. I'm wishing you all the best for your Mercury Retrograde. Again, check out where it's happening in your chart and work with the house themes. It's a really powerful time to rethink, to revise, to remember, to renegotiate, to realize. But slow down, and tune in with your heart. Work with your nervous system. If you're feeling overstimulated, it's a very good clue that you need to come in. If you're feeling a lot of inertia and fatigue, you can help yourself by stimulating your skin and your senses, like flood your eyes with yellow and pink light, tickle your skin. You might rub your scalp or something like that. I do want to reiterate, and I've said this a couple of times, like in recent transmissions, that this point in 2021, from basically the beginning of the year through March, is like really peak nervous system activation, and a lot of people are really feeling that in many different ways. And that can include high stress. It can include being really stimulated, not sleeping very well. It can also include the opposite side of that spectrum, which is like very low tone, a lot of fatigue and feeling lethargic and things like that. So I offered some videos in a recent Instagram post for balancing the nervous system. There's a lot of incredible healers offering all kinds of like free short tutorials on working with your nervous system. So please care for your nervous system. And I'll answer this question, then I'll log off. So what does it mean if you're an Aquarius and your Mercury is in Aquarius? Do those principles of Mercury and you go backwards. If you are an Aquarius and your Mercury is in Aquarius, then this Mercury retrograde is an important one for you to pay attention to, because it's going to be stimulating your Sun and your Mercury. If you are a natal Mercury retrograde, you might find that Mercury retrograde periods are kind of familiar feeling times to you. The principles of Mercury retrograde are more internal and reflective cognitive awareness. Hope that helps. Take nervines, adaptogens, probiotics, get enough sleep, drink enough water, and be excellent to each other. Bye.